throw them, Robert, after you. Paul Steidler runs the Postal Project at the Lexington Institute. He's a graduate of Villanova University and was legislative director and district representative for former Congressman Jim Corder. In recent months, Paul has been active pressing the Universal Postal Union to scale back its subsidized international postal rates with some good successes. Paul, thank you very much. We're looking forward to your remarks.
Thank you, Mac, and it's great to be here today. When we talk about postal reform, that by definition involves congressional action, and it's very easy to get negative about that topic, just given the political divisiveness in Washington, given the fact that the Postal Service is not facing an immediate crisis, and frankly, given the fact that this is not seen to be a major issue relative to other things like health care, and just something that a lot of people are not focused on unless there are difficulties. You know, Ken alluded to the fact, or said directly, that it's much better to do reform when you don't have to. And the reality is the United States is going to have to do reform within a couple of years because the Postal Service is going to run out of cash, or perhaps there are some temporary lending measures that can be made. What I would submit is that there is a lot of reason to be optimistic that the pillars for thoughtful, meaningful reform are in place and that action can be taken to build upon them. Number one, the fact that there is a potential crisis should be beneficial and wake up lawmakers. It was 50 years ago this month that the Postal Service had a strike that led to a grinding of service, and this resulted in a national emergency. Richard Nixon called out the National Guard. He called out troops to deliver the mail. And while the Postal Service's work is not as essential for commerce in the country as it was 50 years ago, it's still critically important, and it still is going to lead to massive disruptions if there is a grinding of activity because of a liquidity crisis. Second positive is that the Postal Service is going to be a big organization in 5 years. Even with the contracting of the mail business, that's still projected to be approximately $40 billion in 5 years. That is a big amount of business and something that provides a lot of opportunity for the Postal Service infrastructure to address. A third commonality is I don't know of anybody who wants to harm postal workers, especially those who are retired, by not treating them fairly. Most people know postal workers. My grandfather was a postal worker. Nobody went into the Postal Service to get rich. And it's really an issue of fundamental decency that you're going to give people, especially those in retirement, what you promised to give to them. The fourth thing is the Postal Service's mantra is that it binds the nation together. Today, binding the nation together actually involves a lot more than delivering mail and packages. We just had Dr. Navarro talk about an influx of counterfeit products into this country. And I would just urge people to take to heart some of the things that he said. 10% of packages from China coming into this country have contraband, have something that's dangerous. We're talking about fake cancer drugs, fake car brakes, seat belts that don't work, child restraining restraints that don't work. That needs to be addressed. There's also a big problem, and this problem has not gone away, of opioids coming into the U.S. from China, and we as a nation need to come to grips with that. The Postal Service is certainly not the only organization responsible for making sure that opioids don't get out there. There's a lot of stuff that CBP has to be doing and doing differently, but there is an underlying urgent need for reform because we don't want a Postal Service that can just get by, that can just deliver things and that can survive. We need a well-capitalized organization that's going to be able to have modern, state-of-the-art, superb systems in place for the advanced electronic analytics in order to ferret out what those counterfeit products are going to be, and in order to work with law enforcement on the opioid side of things. Another major issue, and this is a safety issue, the Postal Service has a bunch of old trucks. 60% are more than 20 years old. That's 144,000 vehicles. It's very expensive to maintain these trucks. These trucks need to be replaced. They need to be modernized. And as part of modernizing the Postal Service, they should be replaced with trucks that are built in the United States by American companies, by American workers. And I don't know, anybody who, perhaps many of you have teenage children. I don't know anybody who would expect or want their teenager to drive around in a 20-year-old vehicle. Neither should postal workers be exposed to them, or at least exposed on the level that they're at. There's been a lot of discussion today about the retiree health benefit system, about how more common sense actuarial work needs to go into place there. I think one of the challenges, the key challenges in arriving at reform is going to be drilling down on costs, and that is understanding what the costs are in different product lines for the Postal Service. There was a very important study that the Office of Inspector General commissioned back in January of 2014. It's called Greenfield Costing Methodology, an opportunity to deliver transformative change. It was based on interviews with 24 executives at the Postal Service, and recommended steps be taken to have more rigorous analysis of granular costs, knowing the actual costs of every item, so that better decisions can be made. The study found a modern, and I'm quoting, a modern bottom-up costing system would provide substantial and numerous benefits to the Postal Service, similar to those enjoyed by companies of comparable sizes. This costing system will provide Postal Service executives with a common and accepted, I emphasize those words, common and accepted views of costs and profitability. Understanding costs better is really the holy grail of reform here. The packages business is growing throughout America. We're becoming a very packages-intensive industry. Some packages, like pharmaceuticals, are essential, and there should be, in the definition of the USO, some mechanism to make sure, especially in life-saving situations, that those are delivered. Many are not. Many that are not come to my house during the week, and that's a discussion my wife and I have, but which she's usually right about, I will say. So in sum, the challenges are formidable, but the fundamentals are there for reform to be made. We do not want to get into a situation where we have to make reform in a crisis that is just not going to address the array of issues that need to be addressed. It's not a good way to make laws. It's not a good way to visit things. So I would encourage folks, especially the 40 or 45 staffers I believe we have here today, to think about this issue, to elevate it, and to recognize the importance of it, because nobody is going to want to be on the side of having fiddled and allow a crisis to come with the Postal Service, because it will affect every American, millennials, senior citizens, and all. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.